Hey, good morning, everyone. It's Tuesday, October 7th. I'm Mark Dent with Noel Medina, and this is the Hustle Daily Show. Coffee prices have soared about 33% over the last year, but one cheaper variety is still king. Nescafe accounts for about 1 of every 7 cups of coffee sold worldwide. We're going to talk about how it's so successful and yet, also not that likable in the US somehow. So we're going to get to that and to the biggest headlines in business and tech right after this. Let's start with the huge story in AI. OpenAI and chip designer AMD announced a partnership on Monday that may threaten NVIDIA's chip dominance. As part of the deal, OpenAI has committed to purchasing tens of billions of dollars of AMD chips that will be used at its data centers and allow its products like ChatGPT to, do their thing and respond to all your questions that you ask it. The deal is not yet finalized, but the news sent AMD's stock up about 23% by the end of trading, and NVIDIA's down by about 1%. That said, over the last few quarters, NVIDIA has made roughly 10 times more revenue than AMD has made off of AI chips for data centers. Sticking with AI for 1 second, as of last week, venture capitalists had already invested $192.7 billion into artificial intelligence so far this year. This year is projected to be the first, in fact, when more than half of all VC money flows to AI startups, according to PitchBook. Of course, all this investment has led many critics to question whether we're in an AI bubble. Are we in a Taylor Swift bubble too, by the way? I can't answer that question. I can say that Taylor Swift's new album came out on Friday, The Life of a Showgirl. It's been getting some mixed reviews, but one party that's been very happy is the theater industry. Mm-hmm. Swift's official release party of a Showgirl film grossed nearly $34 million in the US and another $16 million around the globe.
Yeah.
And Noelle, I think it also has it's done some numbers on YouTube apparently.
Oh, yes. I mean, I am certainly living in the T-Swift bubble. Have been for a while now, I will say admittedly. But yeah, my algorithm is just full of Taylor Swift YouTube shorts, coming from people that attended this theater experience that were posting clips of the movie to YouTube to give people a little bit of a sneak peek. And they were trying, I think, not to spoil anything, but there were some major spoilers for sure.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, it is so crazy. Just anything Taylor Swift, put it in a movie theater. And this was, I think, just, like a music video and some behind the scenes footage.
Yeah.
And it made $34 million here in the US. That is only a fraction of what the Eras Tour movie made in its opening weekend. But, the Eras Tour was life changing. So,
yeah. AMC, like you said, is certainly happy about this. So.
Yeah, very happy.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to a very different subject, which is agriculture, and how it's been a really tough year for farmers who've faced tariffs, rising costs, and foreign competition. Soybean farmers, for instance, have seen their exports to China, which were valued at about $12 billion, drop to essentially zero. So is there a solution for this? Well, according to the Wall Street Journal, the Trump administration is considering a bailout in which they'd use some tariff revenue to put back into the pockets of farmers. Finally, in drugstore news, Rite Aid has officially closed all 1,200 locations in its 3 distribution centers 5 months after its second bankruptcy. While its competitors have taken over around 1,000 stores, nobody has actually picked up Rite Aid's entire business.
Mark, does that mean no more Thrifty ice cream? Do we know?
I hope some entity can pick up that part of the business at least.
Me too.
Venture capitalists, maybe fund that instead of AI is what I think.
Yeah, let's give a little bit of money over to Thrifty and keep that going.
Exactly.
Hey, it's Anna Sale, host of Death, Sex, and Money, the show from Slate about the things we think about a lot and need to talk about more. Many of us have something going on behind closed doors, like a listener we called Elizabeth, who told us she's a hoarder.
I see mess beyond probably what most people think of when they think of mess.
We'll work through it all together on Death, Sex, and Money. Listen wherever you get podcasts.
All right, so for more stuff like that, please subscribe to our show and we'll have more for you tomorrow. And now let's get on to our main story, Nescafe. As I mentioned in the intro, something like 1 out of every 7 cups of coffee sold worldwide is Nescafe. Noelle, you did a video on this recently for us. How did Nescafe get this big?
It's a great question, Mark. And honestly, I did not realize when I started this video just how big Nescafe is, because I am not a consumer of Nescafe. Certainly, I've bought many products from Nestle over the years.
Yeah, I mean, Nestle Crunch, right? It's a good candy bar.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, the chocolate, right? The Nestle chocolate is iconic all over the world. But I wasn't aware of the fact that Nescafe is consumed by, millions and millions of people. Like you said, 1 in every 7 cups consumed worldwide is a cup of instant Nescafe. I came across this Epicurious video on YouTube, Epicurious, the food and wine editorial brand. And I noticed that in that video where chefs from different countries were making their coffee, 4 out of 10 of them were using Nescafe Classico, which is kind of their, flagship product, to make their coffee. And I, being in America, right, I feel like I never hear of anyone making a cup of coffee using Nescafe. We are sort of in this, I would say, 3rd going on 4th wave of coffee, which I'm not an expert on the different waves of coffee, but we're really kind of in our specialty coffee era. So none of us are really drinking instant. But to answer your question of how it got so big, we could get into the background of like how Nestle came to be.
Right. Started with baby formula.
Exactly. Started with the baby formula in like the late 1800s. But really the Nescafe story starts in about 1928, 1929, in Brazil, actually, of all places. So not in Switzerland, where Nestle was founded, but in Brazil. At the time, Nestle had set up multiple factories during World War I because, the demand for milk was so heightened during that time. So it was on the ground in Brazil. And simultaneously, Brazil is starting to face this coffee crisis. This huge crisis that actually Frank Sinatra wrote about. If anyone's familiar with the coffee song by Frank Sinatra, go give it a listen, where they just had bags and bags, millions and millions of pounds of coffee that they had to burn because they just had this enormous surplus that came out of the market crash of 1929. The US was their biggest buyer, and due to the floundering economy, they were just saddled with, like I said, millions and millions of pounds of coffee. They dumped it in the ocean. They mixed it with tar to make bricks, and they even burned it as fuel for locomotives. So this is where Nestle came in.
Yeah.
Like I said, they were already on the ground. They had a factory there, and their goal was to basically create a product that would make it easier for people to consume more coffee.
And that was simply because there was a huge surplus of it.
Exactly.
And therefore had to do something with it. Couldn't use all of it for fuel and all these other weird things they were doing.
Exactly.
So they were like, let's make it really easy for people to make coffee, which was at that time a pretty revolutionary thought.
It was, yeah. And I will say they weren't the first ones to invent instant coffee. I don't go into this in the video too much about like the history of instant coffee, but they were the ones who got it right.
Yeah.
They had this chemist in Switzerland who cracked the code on how to make it taste good. And that was the differentiating factor.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And so fast forward decades, and it just kind of seems like it continues to grow.
It does.
I think Mexico is even where it's most popular now. I think the U.S. is still among the top 5, but generally speaking, it is an international beverage of choice, I'd say.
It is, yeah. And what I've discovered in my research is that it's extremely popular in countries that were, predominantly tea drinking nations for generations. Japan, the UK. And then you have countries like you said, Mexico. They're one of the top coffee producers in the world. There's this really interesting sort of paradox there of countries that were never drinking coffee and countries that have, historically always been drinking coffee. They're all drinking Nescafe. They love it.
Yeah, that is pretty odd. And it's funny that you bring up the tea part of it, where countries that really like tea now like Nescafe, because, a lot of people find tea to be really bad.
True.
And frankly, a lot of people find Nescafe to not be that good either. I've seen so many headlines that are just like, why is, the world's top coffee one that, tastes so unappealing and not really all that distinctive? Now, you are a pretty big coffee drinker though, right, Noelle?
I am. Yes, I am.
And you tasted some Nescafe as part of this video. Are you now hooked on it, or what's going on?
Mark, I tasted so much Nescafe. I could not sleep because I just filled myself with Nescafe coffee. I will say their Nescafe Classico, I really think they've perfected that product, in my opinion. I haven't tasted it throughout the years, but I gotta say, I kind of liked it. Other products, I think they could, obviously tweak the formula here and there. But, coffee, it's so subjective. Everyone has a different preference for how it tastes and what they put in it. So yeah, my opinion, I kind of see the appeal. I really do. And it's easy, it's convenient, and it's very cost effective.
Yeah. And I mean, when you think about, as I mentioned in the intro, coffee prices up around 33% over the last year. And this is at a time when some food prices have kind of stabilized after, there'd been really bad inflation the last few years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't drink coffee every day, but when I do drink it, I get, some specialty latte like a fool. And, I'm paying like $7, right?
Oh, easy.
Plus tip. And so it's just crazy. And I also think Nescafe, from what you kind of pointed out, is that they are trying to maybe claw into some of the people who like fancier coffees, or at least iced coffees, because those are very popular. I think that Nescafe has a colder beverage that's becoming more popular, right?
Yeah. I don't know exactly when it debuted, but they did develop an espresso concentrate that is a, refrigerated product. You keep it in the fridge, and then you just, the same way that you would with their soluble coffee powders, you pour it in a cup, maybe add a little bit of ice, and then you just add water or milk. This is how Nescafe sort of plans to, quote unquote, imprint on young coffee drinkers, Gen Z coffee drinkers who are going to probably be ordering iced coffees, when they go out to Starbucks. They want those like really sweet, delicious iced coffee drinks. And the other thing too here is that we know Gen Z as just a population is drinking way less alcohol than other generations.
Yeah. I mean, they got to have some drug. So it might as well be caffeine, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. We got to give them something. So Nescafe is hoping that this will become sort of the alcohol of Gen Z, which I find really fascinating. I don't know. They might be able to do it. I mean, they're a huge, huge brand. So I wouldn't put it past them. I mean, I mentioned Japan. They hired a psychologist in the 70s when they were sort of coming into that market to crack the code on how to create a relationship between the Japanese consumer and coffee. And the way that they successfully did that was that they created a coffee flavored candy that, they marketed to kids. And then those kids grew up to become Nescafe drinkers. So really like brilliant tactics here. I don't know. They're pretty unstoppable, honestly.
Yeah, really brilliant, really unstoppable. Maybe a little bit diabolical, but who's the judge, I guess? Unlock Gen Z, and I feel like Nescafe can continue to run the world.
Yep.
That's going to do it for us today. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into the Hustle Daily Show. We're a proud part of HubSpot Media. Our editor today is Robert Hartwig, and our executive producer is Darren Clark. We have a lot more tech and business coverage in our newsletter, so if you're not subscribed, please go get signed up at thehustle.co/email, and also follow us on Instagram at The Hustle Daily, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Look, I'm going to be straight with you. Everybody's talking about AI, but most people are just playing around with ChatGPT instead of actually making money from it. That's why we dropped the ultimate crash course to create your own AI side hustle in 7 days. We're talking real frameworks and strategies from the pros like the founder of The Hustle, Sam Parr. It includes mini guides, templates, the whole 9 yards, stuff that takes years to figure out, condensed into 1 week. Stop what you're doing right now and grab it in the show notes. Your future self will thank you.